The worst time for a game's story to go wrong is at the beginning and at the very end. So basically in the middle, you can go do whatever the hell you like. Take a break from fighting the good fight and go fishing or something. It doesn't really matter. But then that would be padding, wouldn't it? So, you know, just fuck it. Make everything amazing. Learning how to end a video game is a valuable skill. Not as valuable as making it fun, but that's a pretty subjective attribute for a game to have. I know people who get giddy excitement from a game like This War of Mine, and that game's based on grim scenarios brought up during the Bosnian War, so yeah. Stories. If a game has a good ending, most people will end up appreciating it for being as such, in the same way that a shitty ending is almost unanimously hated. People don't like being disappointed, you know? Depends why though. A lot of video games follow a simple path to the end, which may be seen as uneventful, but taking unnecessary risks and doing stupid things is far worse. Being let down by a game that you've poured hours of your time into is honestly one of the worst feelings you can have while playing a game. I could have been reading a book in that time. You don't want that kind of competition, you just won't win. Do you know the best way to set up a cliffhanger in a video game? No, that's an actual thing. Not every deliberately open ending that fails to wrap up a story within the space of one video game so you can keep your options open for the next one is doomed for failure, just most of them. It's an uphill battle most of the time, but you're only making it harder on yourself when you've got a boring story to play with. It doesn't bode well when you're starting your massive franchise off by trying to make something boring sound exciting. All uphill from here, right? The good thing about the Assassin's Creed games is that the story is split in half between the modern day and the period of time which the main characters are accessing. The bad thing is that the way in which the modern day is presented is never the good part of any of these games. Every time you're pulled out of Renaissance Italy or colonial America, the game gets a lot worse. It's a bit of an issue with Assassin's Creed as a concept that you're transported to these exciting time periods where you can stick knives in people's throats. But ultimately, the important part of the series is the modern setting where all the tedious shit happens. I couldn't tell you what happened in half of these games when you step out of the Animus, but despite this, Ubisoft decided that this part of the game was enough to carry forward a cliffhanger at the end of the first Assassin's Creed game. This is a horrifically bad idea. You end off the fun part of the game by fighting some mentor figure enhanced by superpowers. Then you're taken back to the present day where you find some cryptic writing on a wall that no one deciphers, and that is fucking it. I can look over the fact that it's a horribly blatant setup for a sequel, and at least it gets some kind of payoff in the next game, but I physically couldn't care less. You hear Desmond Miles' reaction to finding this wall of bullshit, and that is all you need on this one.
Oh my God. It looks like... is that blood?
The way you end off an epic trilogy of games is important. Not only do you need a conclusion that makes sense within its own setting, but it's also the only chance you've got at wrapping up a saga that spanned across 3 different games. Honestly, when I think of what trilogies have had some kind of satisfying closure, it's not as common as you might think. Rocksteady put their name to 4 different Batman games, some of the best Batman games ever made, and Batman Arkham Knight ended off the anthology with mixed success. Since I haven't got a decent enough computer to run fancy video games, I ended up playing it on the PS4, nicely avoiding half the issues that plagued its release on PC. Console gaming is cool too, guys! It's a weird position to be in because I quite like a game that a load of people ended up hating. Did I like it enough to 100% the game in pursuit of the true ending? No, that's stupid. Please don't. So in Arkham Knight, you're fighting some angry sack-faced guy and his military spec lackey who kind of hates you, but you're fucking Batman! So you take him down without breaking a sweat. Well, the mask comes off and everyone knows that you're Bruce Wayne, which is a bit of a bummer, but you get this awesome sequence with the Joker as a trade-off. The problem is that this ending loses momentum very quickly. If you want to see an actual epilogue of sorts, you need to apprehend more bad guys, including Deathstroke, which this game utterly wastes by putting him inside another stupid tank. At which point your reward is a cutscene of Batman blowing up Wayne Manor with himself and Alfred inside it. Dude likes his privacy, no complaints there, but it's a bit annoying that the game tries to imply that Batman kills himself here. It's just not that kind of game. But hey, you can unlock the true ending by putting everyone in prison, including those fucking asinine Riddler trophies, all 243 of them. Then you get a slightly longer cutscene that implies that the essence of Batman is alive somehow, but is mostly there because some people need it underlined that Batman didn't actually die. Most importantly, the reward for 100% in the game is a marginally better cutscene which doesn't feel like it offers up any more closure. This game plays with a lot of themes and then decides not to use them. It dropped the ball at the worst time.
Prepare the Nightfall Protocol.
Are you sure?
There's no other way, Alfred.
It needs voice confirmation.
Martha.
Why did you say that name?
It's a multi-layered ending, but for all the wrong reasons. Obviously, you've got Batman blowing himself up when you'd think it'd be a better idea to entrust the safety of Gotham City to any number of his superhero pals. But also, is privacy that much of a big deal? Just look at Tony Stark, he gets by pretty fine, and all of his friends are in danger anyway, so nothing's really changed, but shock value, eh? I find it interesting how certain endings come about. In the majority of scenarios, endings are written to wrap everything up in a satisfying package, but sometimes you've got to think about what's coming up in the next game and writing an ending that works best for that. It comes up more often than you'd think, and as long as you can follow through on the cliffhanger, there's not too much wrong with it. Just make sure that it's based on an event that is tacked on to the end of the game so everything's sorted, but you've got food for thought for the next one. It'll bring you back to find out. You don't want to leave a fight unfinished. Let's talk about Halo 2 then, a really fun game with well-integrated shooting mechanics and amazing sound design let down, at least a little bit, by a shaky story complete with one of the most infamous cliffhangers in video game history. Everything's getting exciting, the final act is getting more interesting with every new scene, and just when you're expecting some big ending, Master Chief is asked what he's doing, he replies with,
"Finishing this fight."
And that's game, boys! If you want to find out what happens next, make sure you're back here in 3 years' time where you can buy Halo 3. But hey, it's not such a bad idea. It's a great idea for securing sales for a future release, but it achieves this while also completely shafting Halo 2. It's like getting to an exciting part of a song only to be interrupted by silence. And it's even kind of awesome since Master Chief gets the last word and it's all very badass, but it's hard not to think of it as a tease of an ending. When a 3D game made in the last 20 years that has a large focus on story doesn't even have an epilogue, we're in trouble. Just go have fun in the multiplayer. No cliffhangers can hurt you there. The act of writing a story for a video game isn't that hard. All you need is some basic framework for your gameplay to have some context, and at that point, the ending is just rounding everything off. You make things more complicated at your own peril, giving players free reign over how events unfold while still trying to maintain a cohesive and satisfying ending. Good luck. At this stage, 5 years on from its release, Mass Effect 3 has become a rotting carcass of a horse, but since I'm here talking about terrible endings, it would be a wasted opportunity for me to not talk about it. Honestly, I don't like it. Talking about it, not the ending itself. It's common knowledge at this point that Mass Effect 3's ending is a smack across the face of every fan of the franchise. My issue is that there's not a lot that I can add to the subject which hasn't already been poured over and analysed from a billion different angles. So maybe I should defend it instead. No, not quite, but pretty close. After hundreds of hours of making highly personalised decisions based on what path you'd like to take through the Mass Effect trilogy, the final moments of Mass Effect 3 are dictated by a yes or no question. Do you like robots? Well, it's apparently an important enough question for it to be the pivot point for what kind of epilogue you have to your complicated space story. There's a bunch of other plot holes that further sour the experience, but what I like about this situation, and let's be honest, there's not a lot of positives here, is that BioWare admitted their mistakes and did what they could to rectify it. The extended cut DLC papered over some of the cracks, and while it left a lot of questions unanswered, it did go some way towards appeasing a lot of very angry fans. I'd say that in this state, the state which you should be buying the game in if you haven't already, it has redeemable features. It took an incredible amount of backlash and a petition to get there, but not so terrible. If I liked robots so much, I'd be playing Nier Automata, just putting that out there. You You'd imagine that there's some kind of correlation between the quality of a story and what kind of conclusion you get at the end. Surely, if the writers are competent enough to weave an engaging narrative full of exciting moments, plot twists, and character development, then writing an ending that makes sense and isn't hilariously underwhelming is fairly automatic. This is mostly true, and it seems to apply to the opposite, but why would you care? If a game screws up its story and you don't connect with it or care about any of the characters, then a shitty ending should be expected, even if the story is overly ambitious for a Sonic game. The plot behind Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 is one of the most needlessly convoluted storylines ever told in a video game. At least with games like Metal Gear and Kingdom Hearts, you know where you stand. Every game in the series is like this, and you can get used to it. Sonic 06 has about half a dozen instances of characters traveling forward or backwards in time with massive paradoxes. Princess Elise is kidnapped on half a dozen separate occasions, and figuring out how everything fits together, considering that events are told out of order and across 3 different campaigns, is honestly not worth the effort. It's a dry, pretentious story full of plot holes and characters who run around like idiots, so naturally you shouldn't care how it ends, but your reward for sticking with it, and major props if you can, is fucking anarchy. Sonic dies to not quite Shadow, which releases some bad thing because when Elise cries that's just a thing that happens, but that's fine because Sonic isn't completely dead. I don't know, I've been playing this game for a while now and I think Sonic has been dead since the start. But it's fine because a kiss from Elise is enough to bring him back for some reason. All I can think of is the meeting that may have happened among the writing team. Is this okay, Shiro? Yeah, this is fine, as they are slowly engulfed in flames. But then, right at the end, once the bad guys have been defeated by the magic hedgehogs, Elise has a chance to blow out a flame which will solve everything but erase the events of this game. The bitch initially refuses because she values her time with Sonic more than the safety of the world because she needed to be more unlikable, apparently. But she does it eventually, resetting history to the Soliana Festival from the intro. I'm not sure what I hate more, the fact that Elise didn't want to do it, or the fact that doing it is one of the worst ways to end any story. Which flame do we extinguish to erase Sonic 06 from history? This is RabbidLuigi, and when I was looking up a lot of games that people dislike for their endings, older games came up quite often for their simplistic rewards and their basic finales, but every day of the week I will take that over something that requires brain power. Sonic 06 is a very hard game to follow, and there's absolutely no incentive to do so. It says a lot, it's a really damning endorsement that you can take a game's story away, take the ending and the story away from it, and you get a marginally better experience from it. That's what you get by the end of the game anyway. Have you got an idea that you'd like me to turn into a countdown? Let me know in a comment down below, and make sure you check out my Twitter where I'll be turning the best submissions into a poll where you can then decide the best topic. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.